a retro gamer and hobbyist artist with a lot of nerve. Crowlister, the master of ponage. Hi guys, Crowlister here with the Super Smash Bros. Speculation video. Not that long ago, I posted the video explaining why I didn't like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is a massive controversy, and that video got more than 600 views within its first week, which is better than any video I've done since I started my channel about. I was not expecting that video to pick up at all. Then again, a lot of people do like controversy videos, so it makes kind of sense, I guess. And some people thought I was just joking. Well, just you wait. As I promised, I wanted to do another speculation video on the upcoming games roster. Originally, I was going to make a video just going over returning characters and revisions. However, I was going to base that on making a tier list on Tier Maker, and I found a fairly recent one, I think, that was perfect for the matter, that goes over returning characters as well as new character possibilities, so I decided to do that instead. Before I get into that, though, there are some notes. First of all, as we already know, they are currently developing Kirby Air Riders for the new console, and that's an actual Kirby game that's being developed by Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of Super Smash Bros. However, Namco's job listing for its studio dedicated specifically to co-developing Nintendo-exclusive games was hiring positions for another game that was not in the 3D perspective in addition to one that was, and we must assume that Kirby Air Riders was the 3D one, because Sakurai specifically confirmed that Namco are co-developing that game. So the next Super Smash Bros. Either is in development as we speak secretly, or will begin development just after Kirby Air Riders is done, and the game is to be releasing within the year by holiday season. While speculating newcomers, there are some details we need to consider. Nintendo, not necessarily Sakurai himself, are choosing the characters. While Nintendo does take requests for Smash characters, they prefer to take their own picks to ensure some character announcements are shocking, and ones nobody can expect. Nintendo preferred to focus on Nintendo franchises over third-party for the base game, because they have to pay third-party developers to include their characters in the game, and Nintendo likes their own IPs in particular anyway. If a game is too recent to the Smash game releasing, its chance of representation in the title is severely hindered, especially Pokemon. For third-party franchises, they must be franchises that debuted as a video game. Cartoons, anime, or real-life people are out of the question. Sakurai is still going to have his hand at least in choosing characters after all, so what he says goes. The franchise should also have games on Nintendo consoles, though it doesn't necessarily have to be in the lead role. We also cannot logically expect every single character in Smash Ultimate to be returning because of constraints with development and release. And with how many characters Smash Ultimate has, it's going to be pretty dang difficult to re-include every single character. So some characters will leave, and others will be replaced. Same as with Melee to Brawl and Brawl to Smash for 3DS and Wii U. There are a lot of ways they could make up for having a smaller roster, though, I think, as I explained in my video before. Alright, so here I am on Tier Maker. This is a recent tier list that was made around the 4th of May, so pretty recent, very recent to this recording, that somebody made called Super Smash Bros. Roster Maker. And I'll be using that to do a speculation video for returning characters and new characters both at one. I modified the tiers on my own browser to show my prediction on how likely each character is to be in the game. Inevitable, likely, maybe, unlikely, doubtful, and no. Then I also have a tier to omit characters that I am not familiar with at all, though I do know most of the characters that made this list shows. And they arranged them by series to make it more convenient. Alright, so, I'm just gonna explain every character in the list, and then put them in my list after I'm done talking about them off recording. I had to scribble out the bottom of the page due to an ad, just in case, so have that. Alright, so first off, we got the Mario series. We got all the returning characters. And to tell you the truth, I'm not sure if any character from Mario even has a chance of getting removed from the game. If they're going to remove Dr. Mario from Brawl, and then for whatever reason bring him back in for 3DS and Wii U, there's no promising. I can most certainly speculate on characters that some people might want to see in the game, though. The Mario Quartet are likely going to have their voice acting re-performed by Kevin Afghani, because Charles Martinet is obviously not the voice of those characters anymore. He retired and was sent off as Mario's ambassador. So if, this is especially important if Waluigi is going to be added, because they're going to have to give him a whole voice set for Super Smash Bros. As a fighter as opposed to an assist trophy. And then Kevin Afghani would have to do it for that reason. So, while no dip, the Mario Brothers are returning, as are most of these characters that were in the game before, they will have to have a different voice. I will say this, I wouldn't care if Waluigi was made a playable character after being an assist trophy. I know Waluigi is like the most requested character in America. Definitely the most requested Nintendo character. And as we saw with some characters that got into Smash Ultimate, the only way people are ever going to shut up about it is if Nintendo finally does it. Therefore, I think Waluigi's chance of getting in the game is greater than ever. Toad can't do jack crap as a Super Smash Bros. Fighter. I'm sorry. They make Toad be Peach and Daisy's counter-neutral special for a reason. Pauline would be a pretty funny character addition. Pauline has been making a lot more appearances ever since Super Mario Odyssey, and is even in Mario Kart with the Booster Course Pass and Mario Kart World. So, if Pauline were to come in as a playable character, she'd be a pretty hilarious character addition, though I think it's pretty unlikely. Some of the characters are also characters you'd have to assume would be Echo Fighters. I could see Birdo, maybe, if she was an Echo Fighter of Yoshi, because except for the Egg Lay, Birdo could logically have Yoshi's moveset and be an Echo Fighter. It's just, some competitive players hate Yoshi in Smash because of how he is in the game. He's one of those characters some people think is obnoxious to fight against, understandably. And Birdo herself has had a ton of controversy as a character, mainly due to her gender, so I'm not sure if she'd be welcomed by exactly every Nintendo fan. You got Dry Bowser, which should be an Echo Fighter of Bowser. You got a goopy Piranha Plant, I'm not sure if it's from Super Mario Sunshine, as an Echo Fighter for the Piranha Plant, also very unlikely. And down here we have Luigi from Luigi's Mansion 3, which would be an Echo Fighter of Luigi. I also think is pretty unlikely. I did talk about Kamek in my own previous videos. Though unlikely, he'd be a sensible character pick if they wanted to add another Yoshi rep. There's also Geno from Super Mario RPG, though Geno is technically owned by Square Enix, which is why he and all the other characters that debuted in that game have not appeared in any game since then, so. Though Geno has been featured as a Mii Fighter costume, maybe his chance of being in the game is a little more likely, though I wouldn't place money on it. I know a lot of people really want Paper Mario for some reason. Whatever, guys. Ashley from WarioWare, not sure at all. This is Captain Syrup, the original antagonist of Wario Land. She'd be a pretty cool character addition, though I definitely think she's very unlikely as well. Captain Toad, doubtful. I've never heard of this character before. Professor Egad, that's not gonna happen. And King Boo, boss, maybe. Playable fighter, definitely not. So, that's my take on the Mario lineup. Alright, next up we got the Donkey Kong franchise. I can almost assure you that Donkey Kong will have a design revision and make him become Seth Rogen Donkey Kong, as I and some others started to call him. Donkey Kong from the Super Mario Bros. Movie, basically. Not only is he in that depiction in Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, they also revised the default user icons for Nintendo Switch users and the final firmware update for the Switch original to change Donkey Kong's design into the new Seth Rogen design. So without a doubt, that's going to be a permanent revision, and he will definitely have that depiction in Smash. Diddy Kong, very likely to return. He is a fan fave, as is K. Rool. Though K. Rool was one of those characters they put in the game just so people would shut up about him. And some people suspect that Nintendo might hate Rareware now and want to avoid ties with them if possible, which could be why they changed Donkey Kong's design. Some people are even more pessimistic than I am. I said before that Dixie Kong for newcomers is a possibility, and it's been rumored in Super Smash Bros. Brawl that Diddy was supposed to be paired up with Dixie as an Ice Climbers-like combo character. Though by now, I can't really see that happening. There are other franchises that are more relevant for the matter that could use a combo character like that. Or just a tag team character. So, if that rumor was in fact true, it definitely shouldn't be happening now. Funky Kong, I'm guessing is supposed to be a Donkey Kong Echo Fighter, which would be logical. And then we have Cranky Kong as well. So, alright, next up we got the Legend of Zelda series, which seems to be the most difficult franchise to include characters in by Nintendo. We haven't had a unique Zelda character since Sheik and Zelda in Melee. All the others were clones, even Ganondorf, and we didn't get any newcomers from Zelda at all in the more recent Smash games. As a matter of fact, a lot of the characters this person put in this tier list are just characters in the game from different depictions. I think these are supposed to be Ganon's original pig depiction. You got Ocarina Link, you got Toon Zelda, and Tetra, which could be a transforming character. You got Ganondorf from Twilight Princess, Zelda and Link as well from that game. Some different Zelda depictions, and Ganondorf as depicted in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Which I could logically see happening if they wanted to change him out for a different design. Though he's definitely still going to be a Captain Falcon clone. You know, Skull Kid, Tingle, Midna, Girahim, those characters are all assist trophies, and probably for a reason. I did say we could possibly maybe get a champion from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, though that's about it where, a possibility of a new Zelda rep is concerned. Some people might even say Impa, though I think she'd be a little too similar to Sheik, myself. So, even she's very unlikely. Alright, so, the four main Zelda characters are obviously not going anywhere. Not even Ganondorf. We could possibly get a champion from Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, maybe. And that's about all I can see happening for Zelda where newcomers are concerned. No promising either that Toon Link is going to return, and Young Link is gone. No doubt about that. He's completely irrelevant, and yeah. I think this is the Ancient Soldier, the Mii fighter costume you got from the second Fighter's Pass in Ultimate. And, like I said, I think Toon Zelda, and it was Toon Sheik specifically worded, was rumored to be in Brawl as well, and was scrapped. And if Toon Link only barely got into Brawl, then it would make sense why these would be cut entirely. And by now, I just can't see them happening. And I have no idea what this character is. I'm not a Zelda fan, so yeah. Alright, Metroid. One of my favorite first-party franchises by Nintendo. Now, I will definitely tell you this. Nobody wants Samus to still be in her Metroid Other M depiction. Metroid Other M was kind of a crapper in the Metroid series, according to a lot of players. And they basically made that game just to answer the question of why did Adam Malkovich sacrifice his life to help Samus. That was literally the main point of Other M, being the game set in between Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion. I also think it's very unlikely that Samus and Zero Suit Samus will go back to being the transforming character. Because, they separated Sheik and Zero Suit because of 3DS hardware limitations. The 3DS was perfectly incapable of processing character transformations, so they were made separate. And even though we would later get Pyra and Mithra, for example, in Ultimate, they kept Sheik and Zero Suit as separate characters so they could have like a full moveset. Which could be better for them. Not sure about Dark Samus, it is a clone after all. Ridley was just included in the game so people would shut up about him. And if I know Nintendo well, Ridley's probably going to return. And then here are the characters I talked about in my own video. Sylux and Ravenbeak. Sylux is a mysterious figure that debuted in Metroid Prime Hunters and appears in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. And all that's really known about the character is that he opposes Samus. And Ravenbeak is the main antagonist of Metroid Dread. And he has enough moves in the scene where you fight him at the end of the game that he could logically be made into a full Smash fighter. So Ravenbeak, I think, would be a fantastic character addition. And Sylux would be acceptable as well. Both of those characters would serve as a great excuse to add another villain to the game. So, here's what we got with Metroid. Metroid could definitely still use some more representation, so, Kirby. This is a very important note where Kirby is concerned. For the most part, Smash focuses on Kirby games that Masahiro Sakurai specifically developed, which are the original Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Adventure, Kirby Superstar, Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, and Kirby Air Ride, and the upcoming Kirby Air Riders. For the most part, only stages and characters are considered from those games, and any other Kirby game is in lesser manners like songs or spirits/trophies. Regardless, some people do think Kirby deserves a fourth rep. Any revisions could come to these characters without warning. Hadn't you noticed that King Dedede has a different final smash in every game? Now, speaking of which, Kirby does use the Ultra Sword for his final smash in the later games, which is from Return to Dreamland, I think, so that is an exception. It just makes sense for the game's creator to work on the games that, to focus on the games that he specifically made. I did state before that Bandana D has a pretty good chance because he's like the most requested Kirby character. And I barely know the other characters in this list in between him and Marx. Marx is a boss, being the final boss of Kirby Superstar, so it would make more sense for him to be a boss once again. Then there's Adeline from Kirby 64. I think this is one of the forms of the Dark Matter. Galactica Knight, Knuckle Joe, which is an assist trophy, and Cook Kawasaki as well. So while it's not that likely that I would say we could get a new Kirby character, I do think Bandana D would be a sensible choice, and he'd be a character to fight with a spear, which would be a first for the series. So at least Bandana D is pretty likely. I wouldn't say anybody else, though. Also, while Kirby and King DDD are sure wins to return, Meta Knight is not as likely to return as they are, though I still think he has a good shot. Then there's Bandana D, and I literally can't see anyone else from Kirby besides that. Star Fox. Definitely a washed up has-been of a franchise that's way beyond saving. I'll be honest, Fox and Falco are the only Star Fox characters we can expect to be from Star Fox in the game. We didn't get a single Star Fox game on the Switch, except for Starlink Battle for Atlas, which was just a crossover game by Ubisoft, so that doesn't count. And Falco and Wolf are both Fox clones, and all indications are that Wolf's removal from Brawl was intentional. And I can see why. So, Slippy, Peppy, and Crystal, I cannot see getting in the game at all. And while this might be a fun idea, just making Star Fox be a whole tag team character combination, 4 characters in one might be a little much to program, so I'd say that's out of the question as well. So yeah, Fox, Falco. I put Wolf and Crystal in doubtful, and the others are in no. Pokemon is without a doubt the most difficult franchise to speculate, and easily one of the franchises that could add, by far, the most characters in one generation if it wanted. This is an important note, though. Sakurai stated that Pokemon is the most difficult franchise to add newcomers from because since Pokemon is owned by Game Freak, which is technically a third-party developer, they have to get permission from Game Freak in order to add Pokemon into the Smash roster, and so they have to be careful about what Pokemon to choose. Usually, they neglect fan requests for Pokemon altogether and just let the game's creators decide what Pokemon they want in the series. They also always add a new Pokemon from the most recent generation. Melee, Gold and Silver, Pichu, Brawl, Diamond and Pearl, Lucario, 3DS and Wii U, X and Y, Greninja, and Ultimate, Sun and Moon, Incineroar. I can also assure you that not all of the Pokemon reps currently in the game will be returning. A couple of them are going to be cut, though it's hard to determine which ones. Pikachu, the mascot of the franchise, is obviously not going anywhere. And it's a fairly safe bet that, since there are no hardware limitations to stop it from happening, that the Pokemon trainer and his 3 Pokemon will also be returning. So, what about newcomers? Well, there are a lot of interesting picks from this guy, I'll say that. Eevee being the secondary mascot of the franchise, though I can't really see Eevee returning, or being a fighter, I mean. It'd definitely still be a Pokeball Pokemon. Machamp, Blastoise, they're popular Pokemon and all, it's just there's an overabundance in the red and blue versions. And you got Gengar and Meowth as well. And we're gonna have probably 10 generations to choose from in this game. It's more likely now that Generation 10 of Pokemon will come out before or shortly after the game, and they will probably include the Pokemon from that game as opposed to any of these. And if we only get one newcomer from Pokemon, then, that's going to be it. However, I think Pokemon does need another rep besides just a new Gen 10 Pokemon to make up for another character from the franchise getting cut. So, one of these could still get in. Scizor, definitely still a Pokeball Pokemon. Deoxys, definitely still a Pokeball Pokemon. Not sure why Grovyle and Sceptile are both in the list. Blaziken's overrated. Plusle and Minun are definitely not getting in, even if the rumor that they were going to be in Brawl is in fact true. Gardevoir, not that likely. Garchomp, not likely. Piplup, definitely not. Zoroark, I think, does have a chance, though, because, first of all, it's likely that we'll get Unova remakes up ahead around Generation 10. And second of all, if they wanted to include a Pokemon to represent Pokemon Legends Arceus, Zoroark would be perfect, because of the Hisuian form and its backstory. Hawlucha would be cool, though still very unlikely. Decidueye was reportedly considered for Ultimate. It's just they chose Incineroar because they fancied having a character that fought like a wrestler, which technically we didn't have yet. And even though Decidueye did get a form in Arceus, it's still very unlikely that it'll be considered as a fighter now, because the Hisuian Decidueye is not nearly as popular. Mimikyu's kind of washed up. Not sure why Rillaboom is here. Cinderace makes sense. Toxtricity makes sense. Urshifu, meh. Meowscarada, arguably the fan favorite of Gen 9. Tinkaton, that's a weird one. And Ogerpon, also a weird one. And then, the logical guesstimations, I think it's much more likely that we're going to get a Pokemon from Generation 10, and I would hope, though not put money on it at all, that we get a Pokemon rep from any of the games that were on the Nintendo Switch original as well. Because Pokemon is definitely going to be a difficult one to include characters in, though very interesting each generation nonetheless. Alright, so Pikachu's obviously not going anywhere, being the mascot of the franchise. Though it could possibly get a new voice, maybe. Just a guess. Doesn't have to, because they reuse voice clips and whatnot. Pokemon Trainer, I can't see going anywhere now that there are actual hardware limitations. Greninja, and as much as I hate to say it, Jigglypuff are also pretty safe bets. Because Greninja is likely to get a new Mega Evolution in Pokemon Legends ZA, which is definitely going to feature Mega Evolutions and possibly new Mega Evolutions, and is a game set in Lumio City from the Kalos region, so that serves as a perfect excuse to keep Greninja in the game. And as much as I would love to see Jigglypuff go, I have a feeling she's going to be here to stay forever. Because she is one of the originals after all, and she is an important Pokemon for the value of having a feminine Pokemon to attract females into the franchise. We all know that these boys right here have a ton of controversy with each other, especially as Smash Fighters, and there's no promising that either one will return, though I think it's more likely now than it was back then. Most of these Pokemon, the 4 Pokemon that I have here, including Incineroar, I think are pretty unlikely. I mean, Incineroar is a completely irrelevant character in Smash Ultimate, and in my opinion, a reckless choice for a new Pokemon rep. In my opinion, at least, he's not that fun to play. He's kind of annoying to play against as well. And it also doesn't help that the person that played Incineroar's voice in the game died before the character was officially announced. You have to cut Incineroar for that reason, out of respect to Professor Oak's old Japanese voice actor. Come on now, Nintendo. I put Eevee, Pichu, Blaziken, Plusle and Minun, Sceptile, Gardevoir, Hawlucha, Decidueye, Urshifu. Know what? I'm gonna move Meowscarada up into unlikely. That was reckless panning. Like I said, Meowscarada could happen, though I think it's more likely we're gonna get a Pokemon from Gen 10. And then Tinkaton and Ogerpon into doubtful. I just can't really see us getting another legendary Pokemon in the game as a playable character. Unless it was like Zero Aura, which was excluded from this list. Because there's been a lot of rumors that Zero Aura could get a Mega Evolution in Pokemon Legends ZA, and that would serve as an excuse to add him to the game as well. And I think he's more likely than a lot of the Pokemon that were chosen apart from that. And for whatever reason, we have a Team Rocket Grunt, which was a Mii fighter costume, and will likely stay that way as well. Alright, Earthbound is essentially screwed, just like Star Fox. And to tell you the truth, I cannot see Lucas returning. If he was in 3DS and Wii U only as downloadable content, then it's pretty likely that he'll be removed once again and not return, because Lucas's game never got localized outside of Japan, not even on the Nintendo Switch GBA app, and it probably never will. And Lucas is completely inferior to Ness anyway. The only character from this franchise that could possibly happen, I think, is Ninten from Earthbound Beginnings. And he would have to be an Echo Fighter in S. Porky was originally a boss and should stay that way if at all. And the Star Soldier is just a character they threw into the Project M mod, and I just cannot see that happening as well. So, we could be left off with Ness only, and Ninten has a small chance of being an Echo Fighter, I guess. From F-Zero, besides Captain Falcon, the only other characters that some people think have a chance of being in it at all are Black Shadow and Samurai Goro. Samurai Goro is already an assist trophy, so that's a hindrance already. And while Black Shadow is like the antagonist of the F-Zero story, which would make sense, he'd probably be a Captain Falcon clone, and we already have Ganondorf after all, so we definitely can't expect any more F-Zero characters either, especially since the game hasn't had any new entries literally since the GameCube dates, apart from F-Zero on the NS2 app. So, yeah, Captain Falcon's obviously not going anywhere, as he's like the OG Smash character by moveset, and a fan favorite, so he's definitely not getting cut. I cannot see Black Shadow or Samurai Goro at all, really. They're very, very unlikely. I realized that I put Ness in likely instead of inevitable, so here's a fix. And then, the others are put in the doubtful. Everybody's favorite Nintendo franchise in Super Smash Bros., sarcastically speaking, Fire Emblem. I can most certainly affirm you that nobody wants every character from Fire Emblem to return in the next game. The franchise is overrepresented, and it seems like Nintendo doesn't care that it is. Constantly adding newcomers as downloadable content to promote games and whatnot. And it does get on mine and some other people's nerves, believe me. And Byleth, with how disgustingly good that character is in the game, was kind of the final straw. So, you know, a lot of people still want Lyn from the GBA Fire Emblem to be in the game after being an assist trophy. Please, no. We have enough Fire Emblem reps as it is. And then we got the Black Knight and Tiki as well. Alear, the Avatar-like character in Fire Emblem Engage, I could see happening. We could get Alear. It's likely that we'll get a newcomer from a brand new Fire Emblem game as well as one of the DLC characters. And I definitely expect more than one character from the game currently in the game to be removed. So if I were to speculate, Pit will definitely be returning. He is an NES classic with a unique moveset. Palutena is very likely to return. Dark Pit might not return. And the other newcomer possibilities are very unlikely, I'd say. Pikmin. We already know that Alf from Pikmin 3 is an Echo. No, He's an alternate costume of Olimar. However, in Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U's original phases, Alf was going to be a clone of Olimar and would have used the rock Pikmin. Little bit of trivia for you. They cut that and made him be Olimar's alternate costume instead. And Louie could easily be seen as an alternate character for Olimar as well, if they were to pair him up with Alf as well, and possibly characters from Pikmin 4. And then we have Oatchi, the dog from Pikmin 4, which I have seen some people speculate. And Oatchi would be a pretty decent choice if they wanted to include another Pikmin rep, a unique one. So I give that one some consideration as well. Alright, so we got Olimar in Inevitable. Olimar's definitely not going anywhere. I put Oatchi in Maybe. I put Alf as a separate character in Doubtful, and Louie definitely not happening. Animal Crossing. The Villager will return, no doubt. Animal Crossing is one of Nintendo's most iconic franchises as of nowadays, and was a perfect choice for inclusion for 3DS and Wii U, even though it was a character a few people probably expected, outside of Japan at least. And Isabelle, arguably the most iconic Animal Crossing character ever since her debut in New Leaf, also makes sense to return. Even though Isabelle is kind of a clone, and in my opinion, one of the least fun characters in the game to play as. We also got Tom Nook. Tom Nook was a character some people asked for in Brawl, though I definitely think Isabelle put him to definite shame. And then we got Mr. Resetti and KK Slider. Those characters are very unlikely to be chosen. I think the Villager and Isabelle are enough for playable characters, personally. And Isabelle could easily get an update with her outfit from New Horizons being an alternate costume, which I would like to see. And maybe some different alts for the Villager as well. Though, I definitely think Animal Crossing is a bit limited where characters with movesets are concerned, as we saw with Isabelle. So it's very unlikely, in my opinion, that we'll get another newcomer from that franchise. Alright, so I got the Villager in Inevitable, and Isabelle in Likely. And then the other Animal Crossing characters I put in Doubtful. Xenoblade Chronicles. Though I have very little knowledge about Xenoblade Chronicles, because I'm not really into role-playing games apart from Pokemon, I do know this. This character is Shulk, and this character is Rex. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was obviously set after the events of its predecessors, and I'm guessing in the expansion pass for that game, Shulk and Rex had grown into adults. So what if Shulk were to be in his Xenoblade 3 depiction to show that he's gotten older? Kind of like they did with Aiken for 3DS and Wii U with the Path of Radiance to Radiant Dawn depictions. I definitely expect to see Shulk return either way, being the first protagonist of Xenoblade and one of the most popular character additions in for 3DS and Wii U. Pyra and Mithra were also a very sensible character choice, even though a lot of people did expect Rex. And having another transformable character like their tag team ability in the game was still pretty nice, after seeing that Sheik and Zero Suit Samus had to be separated. I can definitely see Noah and Mio, the main protagonists of Xenoblade 3, and they could be another tag team character. Noah has a big sword, Mio has little ring blades, and their final smash could be turning into an Ouroboros, which would be pretty cool. I know this is Elma from Xenoblade Chronicles X, and I think she's less likely to be chosen than Noah and Mio are. This character I'm not familiar with. I'm not familiar with this character unless it's Mecha Fiora. I'm not sure, and I think she looks different. And I do recognize Dunban and Ricky, the characters that appear for Shulk's final smash. So, yeah. Alright, I put Shulk in Inevitable. I put Pyra and Mithra and Noah and Mio in Likely. I have Elma in Unlikely. I have Rex and Doubtful because, if they're going to go with Pyra and Mithra instead in Ultimate and make them be a tag team with Rex showing up as cameos, it'll likely be that way again. Unless they make it so that Rex can switch between Pyra's sword and Mithra's sword during battle. And even then, that wouldn't affect his abilities like strength and speed. And then, the others, pretty much out of the question. Splatoon. It would be a huge surprise if the Inkling doesn't return. They could easily be updated in lieu of Splatoon 3, and possibly even Splatoon 4 if one were to come out before Super Smash Bros. On the new console does. There's also the Octoling, which a lot of people are expecting or speculating as well, and could be an Echo Fighter or a more unique character. And then they have a bunch of other characters from Splatoon as well, that why would they be chosen as playable characters? Judd, I know, is a stage cameo. Marie and Cowley are an assist trophy. This octopus antagonist could easily be a boss. So, that's what I were to guess. I put the Inkling in Inevitable. Not as confident about it. I put the Octoling in Maybe. And I have the other characters from Splatoon besides that in Doubtful. As a playable character, I just can't really see those happening. Next up is retro Nintendo games. And there are some characters in this set that I am not familiar with. The returning characters being Game & Watch, Rob, Duck Hunt, the Ice Climbers, and Little Mac. I have never seen this character before. I know this is Takamaru from the mysterious Murasame Castle. I think this is a Mock Rider. Never heard of this character. I'm pretty sure I've never heard of this character as well. We got the Excite Biker, whatever character this is. Bubbles from Clue Clue Land, Balloon Fighter, Sukapon, Lip from Panel de Pon. No clue what this mole character is, really. And I have no idea what this character is. I do think Takamaru would be a very sensible choice for another retro character, because the mysterious Murasame Castle was localized on the 3DS and Switch. And Takamaru could logically be an actual Smash fighter as opposed to an assist trophy. Some of these characters were considered for Melee and didn't make the cut for a few reasons. The Excite Biker. Actually, I think this might be the Urban Champion fighter. Tell me if I'm wrong, though. The Excite Biker is difficult to make logically be able to jump around. The Balloon Fighter is incapable of fighting without his balloons. And others, like the Urban Champion Fighter and Bubbles, have too limited of movesets. And that could be said about Lip from Panel de Pon as well. Panel de Pon, by the way, is the game that inspired Pokemon Puzzle League. So, yeah. And it's pretty safe to say that all of the retro characters currently in the game will be returning, as they're very unique. Not sure about Little Mac at an extent, because Nintendo reportedly will never make a new Punch-Out game due to racist stereotypes and low sales. Though I doubt that'll have to do with whether or not he'll return in Super Smash Bros. Just new games. Bayonetta will definitely be returning. She did win the Fighter Ballot in 3DS and Wii U, after all. I put the Wii Fit Trainer and the Mii's in likely rather than inevitable. Isaac will probably be chosen, as will a Rhythm Heaven character. Those are very likely. I'm not sure if Min Min will even return, being that ARMS was the only game she appeared in. And the Ring Fit Trainee is basically about 50-50 in my guess as well. I put some of these characters in Doubtful, and the rest of them are probably, without a doubt, not going to happen. Now for the fun part, the third-party characters. I only know some of the characters from Konami. I think this is Alucard from Castlevania. This character, I think, is Raiden from one of the Metal Gear games. I know he's a highly requested character in Japan. And I know Bomberman and Frogger. These characters I'm not familiar with. I can't say for sure if Solid Snake will be returning. He'll probably be cut once again because Metal Gear is just not relevant on Nintendo consoles. It doesn't help that David Hayler is not Snake's voice actor anymore, and that his new voice actor isn't nearly as iconic. And Snake was included in the game literally because Hideo Kojima demanded it to Nintendo. So he is a pretty weird character inclusion through and through. And if Snake doesn't return, that obviously hinders Raiden's chance of getting in as well. Castlevania works more for Nintendo, because the original from Simon Belmont was on the NES. Yeah. Alucard was considered to be the Castlevania rep in Smash Ultimate. They chose the Belmonts instead because they're more recognizable in their whips. And then Alucard and Bomberman are obviously assist trophies. Bomberman is actually by Hudson Software, though I think Konami might have their voice in it as well. And then, Frogger would be a pretty cool choice for the retro value, though I think it's very unlikely, especially under the situation that Konami is kind of in. So yeah. Unless this is a Silent Hill character, I'm not sure about this one at all. I put the Castlevania characters and Bomberman under maybe. I can't say for sure if Castlevania will continue to be represented or not. Snake is an unlikely. I put Raiden and Frogger in doubtful, because they're probably not going to happen. Though Frogger would be a pretty cool character addition, just for the retro gaming value, like I said. Sega. I do know that people are screaming for more Sonic the Hedgehog characters. This person included Shadow, Tails, Knuckles, Eggman, and Metal Sonic, all on the list. And I'm telling you people, Shadow and now Knuckles are assist trophies for a reason. Alright? And Sonic the Hedgehog is a freaking nuisance at best, especially as a Super Smash Bros. Fighter. He's one of the characters that, while destined to return, needs to be nerfed, like I complained about earlier. I know this character, Aihi, whatever it's pronounced, from Super Monkey Ball. This character I am not familiar with. I think these characters after Joker are other characters from the Persona franchise, which I'm not familiar with. And I'm not sure about anybody else at all from here. Up until Akira from Virtual Fighter. And I have no idea about this character. So, just to get through this one pretty quickly, I'll just say Sonic is definitely returning for the fans. Joker probably will return. He is one of the more popular character additions in Ultimate. I put the other Sonic characters, besides Eggman and Metal Sonic, and Aihi and Unlikely. Whatever. Then the other characters, including the ones from Persona, are in doubtful. And I put Akira in no, because he's definitely going to be an assist trophy once again, if so. Capcom. The franchise responsible for the Mega Man and Street Fighter franchises. I think this is a character from Monster Hunter, I'm not sure. I know Chun-Li, she's from Street Fighter. I know this is Dante. I know this is Leon from Resident Evil. I know this is Akami, Phoenix Wright, and that other lawyer character from that other similar game. The others, I am not familiar with. I'm not sure if this is a young Leon or not. They have the same hair. And if that's another character from Resident Evil. So yeah. Ryu will definitely return because Street Fighter is Capcom's main ongoing franchise, and I really hope Mega Man stays as well because Mega Man is like Capcom's most popular franchise, even so today. And Mega Man is, an amazing, unique character. I would really love to see Zero get in as well. Though, because Zero was an assist trophy before, and because Mega Man is kind of a washed up franchise, unfortunately, and Capcom seems to have trouble figuring out how to sequel it soon, there's no assuring that we'll get any more Mega Man representation. I doubt Chun-Li's gonna be added. We already have Ryu and Ken in the game, as that goes. And I also want to point out that some people think that indie games and more mature games have a lesser chance of getting added into Smash's fighters up ahead. So, that could hinder the chance of Dante and a character from Resident Evil getting in very easily. Alright, so Ryu Hoshi from Street Fighter, the most likely Capcom character to return. Mega Man, pretty likely, I'd say. I put Ken and Zero in maybe, as well as the Monster Hunter character in Phoenix Wright. I know some people requested Phoenix Wright before, and Monster Hunter already has representation in the game with the boss Rathalos, so it's possible. I put other Capcom characters in unlikely, and I have the other Resident Evil girl, if that's what she is, in doubtful. Alright, Namco and Bandai. Namco will undoubtedly be co-developing the game again, so definitely expect Pac-Man to return. This is Klonoa, another Namco character. We got Agumon from Digimon. We got Heihachi and Kazuya Mishima from Tekken. Not sure about this character at all, really. Lloyd Irving from Tales of Symphonia. And I believe Nightmare from Soul Calibur. So, yeah. I think Klonoa would be the best choice if we were to get another Namco character, because it'd be another platformer character. And Klonoa was super popular after its debut, not sure boy or girl, on the PlayStation. So it would be a good counterpart for Pac-Man to have. Agumon from Digimon might be a bit of a stretch, since that character is specifically from Bandai and is more in it for the anime value. I definitely can't see Heihachi return being the character, since they went with Kazuya for a few reasons in Ultimate, and Heihachi is just Kazuya without the devil form. Lloyd Irving, probably not likely if he was made the Mii Sword Fighter set. And as somebody that played some of the Soul Calibur games, Nightmare would be a pretty sweet addition as well. Though Soul Calibur is not as iconic as Tekken. So, yeah. Alright, so Pac-Man definitely returning, and I also want him to return because Pac-Man and other Namco arcade games are my nostalgic side. Klonoa has a pretty good chance. And I put Kazuya in maybe, just in case, because Tekken is definitely not relevant on the Nintendo consoles. We didn't get a single Tekken game on the Switch. Pokken Tournament Deluxe doesn't count. And a lot of people do hate Kazuya in Smash Ultimate. I got Lloyd and Nightmare in unlikely. And I have Agumon in doubtful. And Heihachi definitely not. If they went with Kazuya, that's probably for a thoroughly decided decision. Oh boy, Square Enix. We got Cloud and Sephiroth in front. Not sure what character that is, unless it's Tifa, maybe, from Final Fantasy VII. And I'm not sure if that's even her. This mage character I know is from one of the older Final Fantasy games. And she might be as well. We got Dragon Quest heroes. Not sure why we have more than one of them, though. The Dragon Quest III hero and the Dragon Quest XI hero are the same alt. That's the character from Nier Automata, Sora, and I've never heard of these characters down here, so I'll just throw them out of the way. Of all the Square Enix franchises that are in Ultimate, I'd say Cloud, Final Fantasy VII, is the most likely to return, because Cloud is like the main face of Final Fantasy, and Sephiroth was a great new character addition as well. And Final Fantasy VII Remake and presumably Rebirth are also coming to the new Nintendo console, so that makes them all the more relevant. They might even be updated in lieu of the remake, with design. And it would be cool if they also got English voice acting instead of being Japanese only. Not so sure about the other characters, apart from that. Dragon Quest was kind of a tough character to put into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, reportedly, so they're not as sure to return. In fact, I'm not even familiar with these characters at all, so for fairness, I'll just move them out of the way. And some of you know that I have very mixed feelings about Sora in Super Smash Bros. Because I knew that he was the character that people wanted by far the most, and that he was owned by Disney, which is problematic on its own. And despite being specifically deconfirmed and the overabundance in anime-style Sora characters, they still threw him in last minute due to high demand from fans. His inclusion in that game is exactly the same as Sonic's was in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And IMHO, Sora's not that fun to use, and can be pretty annoying as a CPU character as well. It's just, Sora was by far the most wanted character for the game by fans in all regions worldwide, and they did what they could do to throw him in the game so people would stop crying about it. And some people, like me, just can't appreciate the character for that reason. So even though I think Sora is pretty likely to return, despite being purely owned by Disney, it's not a character I'm going to be so happy to see return personally. Some of you already know. I have a lot of unpopular opinions, just in case you couldn't tell by that one video. So I put Cloud in Inevitable. He's definitely going to return, especially after the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth games. I put Sephiroth and Sora in Likely. I put the hero and the character from Nier Automata in Maybe. The other Final Fantasy characters in Unlikely. And yeah, some that I'm not familiar with. Microsoft. Please note, some of these characters are from franchises that are owned by companies that Microsoft owns, as opposed to being purely owned by them. We got Banjo and Kazooie at the front, followed by Gruntilda the Witch, the antagonist of Banjo-Kazooie. I know Conker, that's another Rareware character. There's Steve and Alex, Master Chief and Cortana from Halo, Doomslayer. I think this is a character from the Skyrim series. We got the guy from Fallout, and Crash Bandicoot. This will be an interesting one for sure, because Microsoft does have a good partnership with Nintendo, and even agreed to port some of their games onto Nintendo systems. It's pretty safe to say that Banjo and Kazooie will be returning, being a massive fan favorite, and being owned by a company that used to belong to Nintendo. Gruntilda is more likely to be a boss, if at all, or an assist trophy. Conker, I can't really see happening, because Conker's games are kind of NSFW, and it is a Nintendo game, Super Smash Bros. After all. And Sakurai does want the game to stay for good boys and girls. That's why they didn't choose Mai Shiranui over Terry Bogard for a King of Fighters character, because the character was too sexy. There have been rumors that Halo could get ported onto Nintendo consoles later on, though that hasn't happened yet. So the closest to Nintendo representation for Halo would be Master Chief's inclusion in Fortnite, and that's definitely not enough. Elder Scrolls, I can't really see happening. The dude from Fallout was a Mii Fighter costume, and Fallout is another mature game, like Doomslayer as well. So that kind of hinders their chances of getting in. Crash Bandicoot, I want to think, is a sure win, because Crash, I think, is the most requested third-party character now that Sora is in the game. And Toys for Bob really want Crash Bandicoot to be in Super Smash Bros. As well. There is a hindrance, though. Crash Bandicoot is not involved with Microsoft and Activision anymore. Toys for Bob, the studio that properly owns Crash and Spyro, is now an indie studio. And indie studios' games are more likely to be assist trophies or Mii Fighter costume or spirits or Mii Fighter costumes. It seems anyway. However, Crash Bandicoot is a massive fan favorite, and a lot of people would absolutely love to see him in the game, even overseas. So, I think Crash Bandicoot should be considered by all means. Although, it might be difficult to come up with a good Smash moveset for him, and if he's in the game, a certain friend of his would have to have involvement in the game as well. And unlike Crash, which was a rare case, Spyro was probably the most notorious example of all of an American game franchise's failing in Japan. So, oh well. If they look the other way, apart from Year of the Dragon, Spyro's games are played in Japan. They're just not nearly as popular as they are in America and Europe. With Crash, it's the opposite. He succeeded hilariously in Japan. So, if we got Minecraft representation, Crash wouldn't be out of the question. And I think he'd be more likely to be involved now, with Toys for Bob coming back and showing that they're thriving as an indie studio, after we thought for sure they were done for. So, he was very hoping. We definitely need another mascot-like character from a platformer in the roster, for sure. So yeah, unless the rumor that Nintendo hates Rareware now is indeed true, which I think is just fan exaggeration, Banjo and Kazooie should definitely be returning, especially since their games on the Nintendo 64 are playable on the Switch's NS2 expansion pack app. I put Steve and Crash Bandicoot in likely. I think Steve and Alex could easily return with how good Minecraft is in popularity. And Crash Bandicoot is a pretty safe bet if we were to get another third-party character in the base roster. I have Doomslayer in unlikely because it's another mature-rated game, and apparently Smash doesn't really like to include those as playable characters. I have some of the other characters in doubtful for similar reasons, and if Master Chief doesn't get chosen, why the heck would Cortana be? That just makes no sense at all to me. Finally, we have the other third-party category, which is where I'm going to have by far the most characters thrown into the unfamiliar section. Let me just get some of these out of here. I only know a few of these characters. I know Rayman. I know Ryu Hayabusa. I know Travis Touchdown. I think this could be like a Undertale-ish character, I'm not sure. I know Shovel Knight, and I know Shantae. What the heck is Kratos from God of War doing here? The God of War series, I'm pretty sure, is a PlayStation exclusive, so that should be out of the question. Do I think Terry Bogard is going to return? Yeah, because Terry Bogard is in the DLC for Street Fighter VI, as are some other Fatal Fury and King of Fighters characters. And Terry Bogard is like a perfect rival to Ryu Hoshi, in my opinion. Terry's like a more consistent, and in my opinion, funner to play version of Ryu. And besides Crash Bandicoot, the only other third-party character I could logically see being in the base game is Rayman, the mascot of Ubisoft. Teasingly, Rayman was included in Smash for Wii U as a trophy, so I think he had the spirit in Ultimate as well. So Rayman could easily be considered for a new character for a third-party franchise. And while I'm not that familiar with Rayman, I will watch at least one of his games eventually as a long play. He is another mascotty character from a platformer like Crash, so Rayman would be one of the perfect choices for a new third-party character. Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden and Travis Touchdown are from M-rated games, so their chance of being in the game is hindered for that reason. And I know Shovel Knight was already an assist trophy, and Shantae was a Mii Fighter costume, and they're from indie studios, as would be this character, whatever it is. So their chance might be hindered as well. Alright, so I put Terry and Rayman in likely. Shantae, I think, is slightly more likely than some of the others, since she's more of a platformer character. I got Ryu Hayabusa and Travis Touchdown in unlikely. These characters in doubtful. And there's no way Kratos from God of War is getting in. Like I said, the character has to be on a Nintendo console. And the other characters I am not familiar with at all, so sorry about that. And with that is going to finalize my tier list for Super Smash Bros. Character speculation for the next game on the new console once it does eventually release. I'll just give you a moment to take a look at what I made. Credits go to the person that made this list, obviously. This was made on the 4th of May earlier this month from this recording, apparently, so a recent one. And I enjoyed taking part in filling this out on my hand. Alright, consider subscribing if you like any of the franchises that I like, as I have listed here. I do play these quite a lot and would like to talk about them, and I'm also a pretty good freehand hobbyist artist, and will make fan art of characters from game franchises that I like as well. Occasionally, I'll do a Let's Play of a retro game that I have access to playing on my consoles. And to be honest, I have quite a lot planned for this channel, so if you like Smash or more, as I listed here, consider following me. Alright, so with that is going to wrap up this video. I am Crowster, Master of Ponage. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next upload.